Let's talk about contest riddles. I am on this journey to understand the role of riddles historically, culturally, different parts of the world, and it's fascinating to find that riddles have been a part of human history for as far back as we've been recording human history, and they've been used in a variety of ways. As you can find in some of my other videos, there are riddles that are used to teach survival skills, to pass on moral teachings to the next generation. They're used in ancient escape room type environments, in stories, fictional and some even real. And today I want to talk a little bit about the notion of a riddle competition or a riddle duel that we find in different cultures. And so I've been documenting different examples of this, and I have some that I'm going to take you on a little tour of different parts of the world. I've jotted down an example of a riddle from different parts of the world and how this idea of a riddle duel is used. Now, a riddle duel is a fascinating kind of intellectual challenge where you have two people. They're in a battle, but instead of an obvious physical battle, they are posing different challenges to one another. And the idea is you pose a challenge, and your goal is for that other person to be stumped and not be able to solve it, and to go back and forth as you. It's sort of a battle of the wits, a battle of the minds. But it's also oftentimes done in front of a group of people, so that it's almost like a kind of performance where the crowd is being invited into the intellectual journey, and they're being invited into this kind of competition. And in their own minds, they might be trying to figure out the riddles as they go along. It's a really intriguing kind of approach to the use of riddles. And once more, it points us to the power of this really simple form of word use and language use. And it might just inspire us to make use of some riddles in our life, whether we're doing it with our family, we're doing it in the workplace, we're doing it in other kinds of environments. I would suggest that riddles are something that has some real merit. They're worth keeping alive and experimenting with and using. And even in this growing world of artificial intelligence, where there are many people that are concerned about it replacing our jobs and replacing many things that we do, one of the things that's kind of fascinating is that riddles can be really deeply cultural. They look at things from a slant and an angle, and I'm sure that AI is going to catch up, and different systems probably already have, and they're maybe good at solving some of these riddles. But oftentimes it requires even like local context to understand a riddle, because it's sometimes a kind of inside joke almost in the way that the riddle works, or it requires nuance and looking at words and language in some pretty complicated ways and some really deeply human ways, perhaps. So maybe, just maybe, riddles are something that won't be taken over by AI quite as quickly as other things. Although, who knows? Maybe by the time that I create this video and I put it online, I'm already wrong on that one. Regardless, I think it's a beautiful form of communication, of teaching clear thinking and decision making and problem solving, and also just the design of kind of playful communication with one another. So, with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I have my first one here that comes from Norse and anglo-saxon kind of cultures. And there's this source that I found called the Saga of King Heidrek the Wise. And it contains a long riddle contest between King Heidrek and the god Odin, who is in disguise. And if the riddles are not answered, the challenger is going to be executed. Pretty high stakes. I hope that none of you are participating in riddle competitions with this kind of a potential risk or outcome. But here's an example of one from it. It says, "What is that which kills men and no one sees?" That's the riddle. And the answer is, you can pause if you want to think about it a little bit, but the answer is hunger. And in The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien adapts this into the famous riddle contest that we see between Bilbo Baggins and Gollum. So we see that these kind of forms get taken and repurposed and used in new forms of literature, and it's a neat way of kind of passing on fascinating stories and also teaching some thinking skills along the way. Next one that I found along the way of this kind of riddle contest is through a Swahili source. And riddle contests are held, I'm told, and what I've found as I kind of read about this a little bit, they appear to be used sometimes in festivals among different groups of youth. And the goal is this kind of verbal battle, and you can get the title of Riddle King or Queen. I'm not quite sure if they actually use that title or not, or there's some related title. But it's this idea that it is a part of the cultural tradition, and it's, again, that battle of the wits. And here's an example of one of the riddles that I found, really short one. A house with no door. That's the whole riddle. A house with no door. If you want to ponder it a little bit, you can click pause, think about it, see if you can come up with the answer, because I'm going to give it to you now, and it is an egg. If you want to learn more about that, one of the sources that I found is a book called Oral Literature in Africa, and interesting reading on this. And I'm trying to pick up little used copies of books and resources to sort of learn about riddles from other sources. As I'm traveling, I grab a book with me and I just kind of browse some of these things. Definitely don't claim to be like a world-renowned expert in this right now, but I am deepening my knowledge a little bit one day at a time and sharing with you as I go on that journey. The third one is through in the Persian courts in the 9th through 13th century, there were these riddle duels between poets, and the contests were intended to show a person's mastery of the language and the culture, and again, it was almost like a kind of a performance in a way. And here's an example of one that I found that I think this one might actually be an Arabic riddle. So it's I have cities but no men, lakes, but no fish, roads, but no dust. Let me say that one again. I have cities, but no men, lakes, but no fish, roads, but no dust. Again, you can mute it if you want to think about it for a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you right now that it is a map. All right, let's move our way to Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And there is this idea of a riddle contest that I understand has been part of like courtship rituals and also community festivals at different times. And judges, I guess, will watch these riddle contests and they'll assess them. I'm not sure exactly what criteria they use for their assessment, but it is this kind of public performance and competition between people, and they get assessed maybe on sort of the rhythm and the beauty of the riddle, or the creativity or other things like that. So let's move our way now to let's go to sort of the Irish pubs, Irish and British pubs. And my understanding is that riddle games have historically been part of tavern culture, often woven into songs or ballads with this idea that the loser buys a round of drinks for everybody. Okay, now that's a little bit lower stakes than the execution in the first one that I shared, but you get the idea. Again, it's a part of building community in this sense of a battle of the wits, but also just a playful time together and building community and connections with others. And obviously, if you lose in this kind of environment, maybe you have to buy people around, and maybe people are going to give you a hard time about it for a while, and that becomes part of the story of the pub or the town or something of that sort. And I didn't actually find a specific riddle, and I'm still doing my reading and digging along, so you might have to do your own searching to find an example of one. But this idea of a riddle contest or a riddle duel is really intriguing to me, and I'm trying to figure out some ways that I might be able to make use of that as I think about trying to, in my own life, in my own interactions, and I think about how to design some really engaging, meaningful experiences that challenge people to think deeply, to be clearer in their decision making, to be better problem solvers, and, as I often say on this channel, be more effective treasure hunters when they're searching for those literal and figurative treasures in their life. I hope you find this interesting. I look forward to your comments.